If all living beings must die, then what's the point of living? I couldn't answer that question for years, until one day, by chance, I stumbled upon a short animated film, just a few minutes long, but it did what hundreds of books and lectures never could. It made me stop, truly stop, and listen to a muddy little creature trapped in a sealed room, asking itself the same question I had spent my whole life avoiding. And I realized, deep inside every person, no matter how busy, glamorous, or indifferent, there is a moment when they've wondered the same thing, not always in words, but in feeling. A being appeared, small, muddy, and strange. Its entire body was covered in mud. It was unclear whether it was made of mud or simply caked in it. No name, no gender, no face, just two wide, round eyes blinking in awe, as if surprised by its own existence. It stood alone in a room sealed tight, no windows, no doors, just four gray walls and a porcelain shiny floor. It took a timid step forward. Squelch. The sound of mud meeting tile, wet and heavy. It glanced back. A smear of dirt marred the pristine floor. For the first time in its life, it felt guilt. It dropped down and tried to wipe it away, but its hands were muddy too. Wipe one spot, smudge another. Every effort only made more mess. It panicked, scrubbed harder, but when it looked up, half the floor was now stained with smudges from itself. If only I had something to clean with. The thought emerged, barely a whisper. Then click, a drawer popped open in the wall. Inside a pair of rubber gloves, a bucket of water, and a small rag. The creature froze, then slowly reached out and picked them up. For the first time, it put something on its body as if slipping into a bit of hope. And it began to clean, step by step, wiping away footprints and smears, each wipe followed by a careful retreat, afraid to stain the cleaned space. The floor gleamed again. A glimmer of joy appeared in its eyes. But then, it looked down. Its feet were still muddy. Every step would dirty the floor again. It sat down, exhausted, still wearing gloves, hugging its head, wanting to cry, but unable to. It didn't yet know this was just the beginning. After resting for a while, the creature stood up. The floor was mostly clean now, except the footprints it stood on. It froze, not wanting to ruin any more. Then a new thought flickered. If only I had shoes. It didn't dare hope, but click, another drawer opened. Inside, a small pair of shoes, earth brown, lined with soft fabric. Its first ever shoes. It hesitated, its feet still muddy, didn't want to stain the path to the drawer, so it looked for another way. It pulled out a large cloth, laid it across the floor, and began inching forward, step by step, like walking on ice. But before it could reach slip, it fell. The rag flew, gloves tore, the bucket tipped. A crash of mess. Splatters and smears exploded across the clean floor. It sat there, stunned. It had tried so hard, calculated every move, still failure. It stopped cleaning, just watched. Then slowly, it dragged itself toward the shoes and quietly put them on. Click. A third drawer opened, this time clothes. It hesitated, then dressed. Something warm stirred inside. But when it tried pulling up the pants, both legs went into one hole. It stumbled, fell. The bucket spilled. The broom snapped. It lay motionless, as if it had crushed its own dream. From then on, it tried, failed, tried, again, and failed again. Sometimes the drawers stayed shut. Sometimes the items broke. Sometimes it slipped halfway through cleaning. Sometimes everything was perfect until it dropped a whole bucket of mud again. Doubt crept in. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the thing that can never be clean. Anger followed. It screamed at the walls, punched the floor, ripped off its clothes, threw the shoes, clawed at the mud as if trying to tear off its own skin. But the mud didn't fall. Worse, its skin began to hurt. The mud wasn't on it. It was part of it. Finally, it let out a silent scream. In its hand, one fist of mud. It hurled it at the wall. Thwack. And then, crack. The wall made a sound. Not the usual click. Not gentle. Not calm. A sharp crack, like something sacred had just been offended. The creature froze. The wall had never changed before, not from kind wishes or careful effort. But this time, a smear of fury left a fracture. From the muddy splatter, a crack began to spider outward like veins across glass. The creature stepped closer, touched it. No warning, no zap, just a mask falling away. It picked at the crack. A piece of wall fell off, revealing a sliver of light. It leaned in, and its eyes widened. Another world. Not another room. A landscape. Wide. Open. Sun-drenched. There was wind, birds, flowers, and beings just like it. Other muddy creatures. But they weren't scrubbing floors or screaming at walls. They lived without shame for their muddy skin. One used mud to decorate tree trunks with flowing patterns. A muddy child painted suns on a stone wall. An old one by the stream molded mud into tiny statues. The creature couldn't believe its eyes. Why aren't they ashamed? Why are they smiling? A muddy child spotted it through the crack, waved, smiled. A smile as gentle as the first breeze of summer. So sincere. The creature didn't know how to respond. Something cracked inside its chest. Not anger, not guilt. A new question. What if mud isn't meant to be scrubbed away, but shaped into beauty? It looked at its hands, still muddy, but for the first time, it didn't recoil. It stepped back, staring at the crack of light. That sliver of sun glowed through the mud on its skin, creating warm golden streaks. For the first time, it saw itself. glowing. It sat down, not to clean, not to fix, just to sit. No longer trying to be right, not trying to become anything. Just to be messy, tired, alive. After a long stillness, it touched a dried patch of mud on the floor. Then, as if moved by something deep inside, it used one finger to draw a small circle. Inside it, a smiling face. No one taught it that. No voice instructed it, but the motion felt true. Then it kept drawing. A sun, a tree, a river, an eye, two hands holding each other. Each drawing pulled forth a memory without words, a failure, a longing, a time it almost gave up. Everything it once hated, everything it had tried to scrub away, was now story material. Not in words, but in mud, in itself. It stood up, walked toward the broken wall, no longer afraid to dirty the floor. It didn't tiptoe anymore. It walked strong, steady. Each step left a muddy print. But this time, it didn't look back. And for the first time, it didn't open a drawer. It didn't need gloves, or shoes, or clean clothes. It only needed to step out. Beyond the crack, the world opened 100-fold. No gleaming floors, no rules. Just soft grass underfoot, sky overhead, and hundreds of muddy beings creating endlessly. Some painted, some built, some sculpted. Some just wrote tiny stories on walls with little smears of mud. No two alike, but each living fully. Not to be clean, but to become part of the masterpiece. An old muddy being approached, eyes as kind as still water. "What took you so long, child?" The young one looked down and whispered, "I thought I had to be clean first." The elder smiled. "You didn't come to scrub yourself spotless. You came to understand mud isn't a mistake. It's color. Life isn't a floor to polish. It's a wall waiting to be painted." The young one stood still, looked at its hands, still muddy, now glowing. It looked up and smiled. Not the smile of someone who understands everything, but the smile of someone who has just realized they can begin again. And this time, they'll create. The muddy creature stood before the great wall, hands raised, painting with its own being. The camera panned out. Sunlight fell across its shoulders. Beautiful, not in a perfect way, but in that aching, real way that makes you hold your breath. I sat still for a long time after. The old question returned. If all life must die, then what's the point of living? But I no longer felt fear. I no longer needed a lofty answer. Because now I understand. Life isn't about staying clean. It's about daring to be messy and still choosing to live fully. Not to be perfect, but to grow through every fall, every flaw. To live is to paint. To paint with the most imperfect parts of yourself. I don't know who you are. Maybe you're a young soul, lost at the crossroads. Maybe you've made mistakes, felt dirty, tried to live clean, and grew tired. Or maybe You've been perfect for too long, so clean, so correct, that you forgot. Every smudge is a brushstroke. So if today you ask me, what's the meaning of life? I won't say much. I'll simply hand you a fistful of mud and say, paint, don't worry about being right. Don't worry about being pretty. Just make it yours. Because, you see, life isn't a draft to erase. It's a canvas that only comes alive when you dare to color it with everything you haven't yet made perfect. Now, it's your turn. Paint.